Okay, we're going. Good evening. This is Doug, W9LCQ. I'm TDXS Secretary, and I'm hosting this meeting. Have a very short agenda. Appreciate if you would mute your microphone if you're not talking actively. First of all, I'd like to ask the officers if they have anything to report. Gerald?
Mikey?
Guess not. How about Larry?
Okay. Yeah, I'll give an update. So far, we've had 39 membership renewals, which puts us about a week ahead of where we were last year this time.
Cool. And we still have money in the bank.
Still have money in the bank, yeah.
That's great.
That's it.
Well, we have two new members as of this month. We've got Jim Clark, WM5L, who is number 232. He lives in San Angelo. And Brett Black, K5BEZ, number 233, and he lives in Abilene. It's good to see us getting a lot farther reach across Texas.
That's good.
Yeah, sure is. Next item of business. Y'all know
Wait a minute. I just want to say something. First of all, I want to thank those who have sent in some additional articles to the bullsheet. I still need more of those kinds of things. Just, biography or discussion of some activity that you did. Anything, to spruce up the bullsheet. I'd like to keep it a little bit more interesting than just have the same stuff every month. So if you all have an article, pictures, whatever, send them to me. And secondly, we need some officers. We need a president. We need what else do we need? A VP of programs.
DX chairman,
and field day chairman. Well, maybe not that this year again, but we need some people to step up.
Yeah, that was my next item. Good.
Well, go ahead then. I gave you an intro to your item because a lot of us have been in this in our positions for a number of years, and we don't mind, but some people can't keep doing it, and we need some new blood. And,
yeah, in fact,
I see a whole lot of faces out there.
In fact, I was just looking back through the officers list for over the years, and our bullshit editor Alan has been doing that for 8 years. I've been doing secretary for 7 years. Roby, I think, had 4 years as a president. Old Glenn TUF has been the repeater chairman for 17 years now. A lot of these guys like what they're doing, but the point of the matter is that there's a fair number of people who've never done anything, or if they have, it's been decades ago. You need to step up. We desperately need a president, for example. Do I hear any volunteers? Crickets. Okay, well, I opened up that issue again, so keep it in mind.
Maybe you got some recommendations for somebody who's willing to step up and do it.
We could nominate someone in absentia, I guess, but that generally doesn't work.
And my comment is I'll help anybody who volunteers if they need any assistance or want to know how to do things or any of that kind of activity. Just if you're willing to start, I'll help you out.
If you want more details about what the president does, contact Roby or contact me. Anybody who's been past president, we can tell you how easy the job is. Okay, with that, at that point, well, I guess we go down to our programs. We've got 2 programs this month. One is I think a very short one from Orville, K5VWW, on obtaining the Texas ham radio operator's license plate. Orville, you ready?
I suppose so.
You could take over the screen.
Okay, let me see what I can do here to get a share.
I kept looking for you. I didn't realize you were right next to me.
Well, let's see. I'm trying to find where the share button is.
It's at the bottom center.
You have to move your cursor down to the bottom and it'll pop up. Then it'll be a big green thing.
It says, "Hey Orville, don't press this button."
I do not see any. I'm moving the cursor all over the place.
To the bottom of the screen
I'm at the bottom.
of the window.
It'll be at the bottom of your Zoom window,
Right.
where the mute button and the video button and all that stuff is. If it's in the middle.
How about that?
Above your taskbar.
Okay, how about that? Share.
There you go.
There we go.
Wonderful. Okay. A while back, I had gotten a new set of license plates for my Volkswagen, and I was interested in getting a handicap plate as well. And I found out that they do manufacture a license plate with the handicap symbol on the side. So I went down to my local county courthouse annex, which is about a mile away from the house, and talked to them and found out just all kinds of neat things. Right now, they have made some changes. You can obtain up to 3 sets of call letter license plates for use on vehicles which are titled in your name. So you can have like a car, a pickup, motorcycle, all with the same plate with your call on it. You can apply at any time of the year. You don't have to wait until it's time for renewal. I went about 2 weeks ago and took an application which can be found at, I've got a URL up here, tiny URL /TXDOT-VTR-53, which is the form number. And it looks like this. And all you really need to do is to take this form filled out, which you can get off of line. The form is available at txdmv.gov. And again, it's the VTR 53. But you fill it out and you can have up to 3 different vehicles on this application. When I was there and I applied for the new plates, they charged me only for the amount of my registration until the end of the year, which was $17 and change or something. So I'm good until the end of the year, and I'll have new plates. The way that these are working now, you take this, your driver's license, a copy of your ham license, and that's all you need. You give them the form, they do their thing to it, input it in their computer. And in 2 or 3 weeks, your plates are mailed to your home. You don't have to go back to downtown Houston to pick up your plates anymore. So it's a very simplistic operation, and it's real easy. So that's all there is to it. If anybody needs any information on this, I can email it to you or what have you.
My question, Orville, is do you absolutely have to show up to do this? Is there any
No.
way to accomplish this online?
You can do it. I don't know if you can do it online, but you have to mail the application in.
Okay, so you mail the application in, and then how do they, well, whatever, you didn't do it, but I mean, there's got to be some money involved and you don't know how much it is and
Well,
that kind of thing.
not it doesn't necessarily have to have a monetary exchange.
Okay, but in your case, it would have.
Yes,
right?
but yeah, they renewed my plates.
Okay, and the point,
or my registration.
And my point is, how would they have told you that how much it was if you mailed in the form?
I have no idea.
Okay.
But
one other comment. If you're looking at it online, it's under M for mobile. All of them are applications, and it's under M for mobile amateur radio, whatever. It's not under A. It's not under R.
If you just
M.
Google VTR 53, it'll take you right to the form.
Right.
A couple other comments on it. If you have toll tags and you have multiple vehicles, it can be done, but you've got to deal with the toll tag people to get the plate registered on multiple vehicles. And the one thing that nobody's ever really been able to give an answer on is, are you limited to 3? There's only 3 places on the application, but there's nothing in the laws that says you can only have 3. So maybe if you got more than 3 cars, you can submit more applications.
And with that thought in mind, Jimmy, and to the rest, I have 3 vehicles. I have an RV, an SUV, and a car. And I have them listed as with the toll tag. And I actually got a call from them, and they were telling me that the toll tag I'm going through the toll booth cannot be switched with another vehicle. And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, this toll tag here that belongs to your car was used on your SUV. I says, no, it wasn't. They said, well, your license plate says it was. I said, well, I got 3 vehicles with the same plate. He says, you can't do that. I said, oh, yes, I can.
Watch me.
And he paused. Yeah, he paused and he said, oh, okay, well, I'll mark it that way. I said, okay, thank you. Hey, and one other cat.
I think if you try to update, somebody told me if you try to update on the site where the toll tag stuff is you can't put the same, it won't let you put the same plate number in for different vehicles. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't tried yet.
That is true, but I have some recent experience with this, and I tried to do it online and with the app, and you can't have 3 vehicles, and I do have 3 vehicles with the same license. You can't do it with the app, but if you call them and you are willing to wait online for 30 minutes or 45 or an hour to talk to them.
That's what I've heard is you got to deal with them to do it.
Right, then they'll do it. And so I've got an RV, a Tesla Model 3, and a Ford F-150, all with the same license plate and all with easy tags that work finally.
I mailed my stuff in along with some other stuff back around Thanksgiving, and I haven't heard anything yet. So
The other thing
finally went ahead and made an appointment to go into the Spring Branch office, but the appointment's not in March or something like that.
Which office is that?
The tax office.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
Jimmy.
if you only had one vehicle with your call, then it wouldn't be a problem for the toll system.
Correct.
And the one hitch is if you have any penalties or fines, they make you pay for those first before they give you the 3 license plates with the easy tag.
The other little wrinkle that you may be run into, or maybe not, is that you guys all know me by Marty Fitzgerald, W5MF. And in fact, that's what my amateur radio license says. But my driver's license says Harold Fitzgerald. And they wouldn't give it to me until I straightened it out. So I had to go to the ARRL and they help me correct it in the FCC so that it flips around the other way.
Oh, that's a good point. Has everybody added their email to their FCC entry?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
You talking about
Legit.
FRN?
Yeah, the FRN, yeah. So it's the same place you would get your name changed.
And by the way, if any, and there's a lot of DXers here, so if you're planning on a DX expedition, you need to make sure that your driver's license and your ham license and your passport all say the same name. I got in trouble that way too.
So has anybody just mailed in the form along with your annual update form that you get sent out? Has anybody done it that way to change their call? Nope. Okay. That's what I was thinking I would do, is just instead of doing it online, next time it gets renewed, just send in the form and see what happens.
Yeah. Rick, my local tax collector assessor is at the intersection of 99 and West Park Tollway, which is very close to my apartment here. And the lady there was extremely helpful. I first talked to a lady down in Richmond at the county, Fort Bend County, and she was even more knowledgeable. But the lady at my local place down here was very willing to do anything to help. And it took me, I'd say, probably less than 15 minutes from the time I signed in to the time I walked out the door. They're very willing to help.
And as a matter of fact, I used to have ham call plates on a previous vehicle, and I'd gone through all the process. But I've also spent the whole year staying away from people with COVID, and I was trying to find a way to not have to show up at a public place.
Yep.
And so that's why the questions. It's either wait till the COVID stuff is over, or maybe I'll just send in the form when I get the renewal.
One thing y'all should notice, it does require you have to have a working radio in your car. I know one ham got a ticket for not having a rig in his car. If you don't have a mobile radio in your car, 2 meter, 440, whatever, throw an old handy talkie in the glove box and you're covered.
Right. Was that somebody here in Harris County?
Yeah, it was in Harris County. I think he got pulled over for going over the speed limit, but the cop knew the rules and said, "I don't see any antennas on your car. Where's the radio?" And he didn't have one, so he got another citation.
So it's in the shop.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's in the shop.
I mean, there's something in the rules that says you have to. I don't know that it has to be in there. You could probably beat that one.
Yeah.
It's in the rule that you need to have radios, but I don't think there's a rule that says it has to be in there 24/7.
Sounds, that wasn't you, was it, that had that problem?
No.
I was going to say maybe your friend there talked back to the cops, so the cops said fine.
So he called Al to have Al talk back to him over the phone.
I'll do it.
One other minor point. At the time that you do the renewal, you have a choice. You can either surrender your current license plate, at which point in time they will give you a paper plate that's good for 90 days, or you can offer to keep your existing plate and tell them that when you get the new one, you will destroy it. In my case, I had both a ham plate and a handicap placard, which goes on the rearview mirror. and I surrendered the placard, and that satisfied the requirements.
I did run into another little wrinkle for whatever reason. I had a Ford Explorer that I sold, and when I sold it, I took my hand plates off of it. Okay. And I had a motorhome that did not have hand plates on it, but they were ordered, and I was waiting on them, and I had that paper plate you're talking about, and I thought, oh, what the heck? I'll just use the old Ford Explorer plates on that motorhome. Well, I got caught on that going through one of the toll booths and called up on that. So I don't know how they can tell. I know there's a barcode on there. If you look at this form you're displaying right now in that bottom right hand corner of the plate, there's some sort of barcode. I would find it hard to believe that that plate reader would pick it up, but maybe it did. And so I complied, and when the one came in the mail for the motorhome, I put it on, switched them out again, for whatever that's worth. So don't try and play games with the plates. Apparently, I don't know.
Orville, if you request the handicap symbol on your plate, do you have to have a form from the doctor or what?
Well, I already had the placard, which was good for 3 years. And I just surrendered the placard.
Yeah, if you already have a blue permanent, you can just surrender that. If you don't have anything, you got to fill out a VTR 214 and turn it in with everything, as well as the doctor thing.
I don't think the barcode reader can read those things. I've had the same old plates on my car ever since I bought it in 2014, and I know I've got another one since, which I've used to patch holes and things, whatnot. So, your mileage may vary, but that's what mine does.
So you get a Demontron license plate frame and put that over it, and then they can't read that barcode.
I agree. I don't know how they knew.
Maybe there's an RFID thing in the plate.
Oh,
Is
doubtful.
there?
Well,
I
maybe
don't
they've
know.
matched up the VIN number or something, which they have that information.
What, are we talking about something that happened just from going through the toll booth?
Yeah, me. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, so they probably have software that looks at the size of the vehicle and compares it. I mean, how do they know whether it's a 3-wheel or a 3-axle or a 2-axle?
You
Same
go over
same,
you
same
go over
kind of
those
situation.
bumps. You go over those bumps in the highway.
It's
AI.
But in Colorado, between the airport and Boulder, there is a toll road, and the toll sticker is only like 3 inches long and 1 inch high. It's itty bitty, and they scan it. It's not RFID. It's visual somehow. So who knows?
Back in 2015, I applied for my plates, but also applied for my motorcycle. And they had it all screwed up to the point where I finally gave up, and I got the plates for my truck, but I never did get the ones for the motorcycle. They kept calling me saying, your plates are in. And I'd go stand in line at the courthouse for a couple of hours, and then they couldn't find them. So then I started telling them, look, you go pull them and put your hands on them, and then I'll come down. Never happened.
Well, they don't want you riding a motorcycle, Kim.
Well, that's good because I sold the damn thing.
Oh, good. You're dangerous.
Okay, was that it, Orville?
That's it for me.
Thank you, Orville.
Yeah, thank you. Very informative. Okay, our next program is by Roby, and it's portable operations for portable and mobile activation. Take it away, Roby.
Okay, here we go. Can you see it?
You betcha.
All right, so this is kind of an overview, and this is kind of how I do things, and at least here recently. So what I was trying to do with this presentation is really just stimulate thought and discussion about portable operation. And to do that, I'm going to share some of the things that I've learned. I think there's a little bit of technical part of this, so this will encourage people to maybe experiment with antennas, you know, that sort of thing. And definitely encourage you to try it if you haven't already done it, because it is a lot of fun. And also to help people that maybe live in, you know, that don't have good outside antennas, or live in HOA areas where antennas are restricted. These techniques will work pretty well at home, and I've kind of proven that here with my with my backyard de-expeditions. And also possibly to talk about some sort of joint activity. I know we're constrained with the virus and that sort of thing, but maybe there's some way or some interest in getting together in a park or something like that for a few hours, you know, kind of like a couple-hour field day or something like that. And along that line, Winter Field Day is coming up in a couple of weeks, so that's a possibility as well. So I had done this part of this presentation for another group, and I talked a little to that group about why we might do this. Okay, number one, contesting. You know, the Texas QSO party kind of comes to mind because we're trying to activate, you know, new counties. The VHF contest for grids, which is something we'll talk, is definitely a possibility. Field day also comes to mind. Chasing awards, again, activating grids, counties, summits, you know, summits on the air, if you guys are familiar with that, parks, with the Parks on the Air group. Take advantage of locations, you know, summits, high places, good places to operate from. Proximity to salt water can give you kind of a boost. It's sort of interesting. Experimenting with new equipment or experimenting with old equipment, modifications to it, especially antennas, makes this pretty interesting. I'd already mentioned earlier about escaping from HOA restrictions. I like to fish, like to trout, fly fish for trout. So I do that several times a year in different parts of the country, or in some cases, different parts of the world. And so it's a lot of fun to kind of get on the air while you're traveling. And just for the heck of it, there's a small group here in the Clear Lake area. I'm going to try to get them out to a park when the weather is a little, you know, when it's not so wet, just to get some of these newbies out and show them HF, and maybe recruit a few new members. And there's at least a couple of these guys that are interested in contesting. So possible seed for more TDX members in contesting. So what I try to do is I try to establish some kind of objectives for what I'm going to do on a particular trip, and I look at what my capabilities are. I look at the different equipment I got, and, you know, and myself personally, what I'm willing to do or what I can do. I'm not much of a summit on the air guy, but, you know, that's kind of one of the constraints you might consider. I'll make some sort of a plan, even though it's usually not very complicated. And then when it's all over, I try to learn from, you know, my experiences. So the next time is easier, faster, more effective, you know, whatever the case might be. I like to chase grids, and activating grids is something that I consider doing, and picking a place to operate. I like to experiment with equipment, and again, especially antennas. So something that's new, either something I bought or something that I built. And as I mentioned, I do travel a bit, and I like to operate when I'm away from, you know, from the local area. And I think it's a lot of fun. So it's just, that's kind of some of the things that attract me personally to this activity.
Toby,
Yes.
Toby, what kind of antennas do you use?
Okay. That's all covered later.
Cable or what?
That's all covered later.
Okay.
That's the whole purpose of this. So I kind of start with what I got, and I either buy, I add to my little stable of equipment, or I build. And mostly I try to build because that's something that I personally like to do. And all the things that I talk about, you can certainly buy. And I guess on a macro scale, this could be also the same kind of approaches for de-expeditions, but certainly that's far and above the level of operation that I currently undertake. So first thing I want to talk about is antennas and supports. So for me, they've got to be simple. They got to be lightweight, but I'm not a backpacker, so I'm not talking about the ultra lightweight stuff, but I don't want to carry 400 or 500 pounds of stuff around with me. I'm looking at less than 100 pounds, probably everything all together. I need it to be kind of rugged because I get sometimes I don't do it right and I put a little stress on things. So I like things that'll last. And since it's usually just me, not always, but it's usually me. So whatever I do kind of needs to be erected by, a person, by one person. And like I said, that's probably going to be me. I have gotten help from time to time while I've been struggling to get something in the air. Somebody will see me fiddling around with it and walk over and say, hey, let me give me a hand with that, which I really appreciate. So going to kind of narrow the focus here a little bit. We're going to talk about some VHF work that's been done and some HF work that's been done. And I chose for VHF, in particularly 6 meters. I'm not migrated to the 2 or 432 level yet, but I've got a small 4-element Yagi. It's very lightweight, and I'll show you what I use here in a few minutes. And I use that antenna for 6 meters, and it's quite effective. And I have chosen the in-fed half wave, or it's actually a dipole, the in-fed dipole, but it's most commonly called the in-fed half wave today. And that's what I use for HF. And we'll talk about why in a minute. So the in-fed half wave antenna has got a fairly low angle of radiation. And that holds true with the vertical antenna until it becomes greater, as long as it's less than about 5/8 of a wave. So if you have a full wavelength vertical, you're going to start getting some lobes in the vertical pattern that will focus some of your energy more vertically and less horizontally. And I'm not saying that's bad. It's just depends on what you want to accomplish. If you're trying to work DX, it's probably not the right thing to do. If you're trying to make sure you got coverage of the local area, it's probably a good thing to do. This antenna is lightweight because it's just a single wire. You only need one support. It's pretty easy to get up into the air, and you don't need any sort of extensive radial system for it, because the amount of current that flows into the end of an in-fed half wave is very low. And so a small counterpoise is adequate for reasonable performance. It has a relatively high input impedance, somewhere between 2,500 to 3,000 ohms. I've heard higher numbers. I've modeled these things with EasyNet, and sometimes you get higher numbers, but I think nature kind of helps mitigate some of that. This seems to be a practical value. It seems to work out. So, this antenna can be used on multiple bands. If it's integer multiples, like you can use a 20-meter one on 10 meters easily, but the problem you have there is that the 20 meter, it'll be a full wavelength on 10 meters, and it'll start having those vertical lobes. I'll talk a little bit more about that, about other multiple band opportunities here in a minute. So here's the pattern of the in-fed half wave. And as I said, if you make the antenna longer, what you will get is these lobes will start decreasing, and you will get other lobes forming at higher angles. So I choose this to kind of keep it at the low angle because I'm really kind of interested, you know, in seeing where I can work with these things. So this seems to work best for me. That's why I made the decision. Um, so here's a picture of my in-fed half wave setup, or one of the ones I use. This antenna is 20 meters, which is typically what I will work with. It's deployed on a spider pole, which I'll talk about here in just a few minutes. That's the black fiberglass pole that's shown here. It's supported by a T-pole, and you can see what it's connected to. The T-pole is a fence post that you can buy, and I guess it's better to say it's a T-post. You can buy it at any of the Home Depot or Lowe's or McCoy's or any of those places, and it's made for holding up wire fences. Is what it's made for, and they're about $8 or $10 a piece, something like that. And you can see the ground system I use. In this case, I have this little piece of hardware cloth, and you can see it's about 30 inches, 36 by 30 inches or so, and that is the ground system that this antenna is operated against. I know you can't see the whole thing, but so here's for the picture that you just were looking at, here's the antenna I use. It's 33 feet. It's number 14 stranded house wire, whatever you want to call it. In this case, I'm showing you the other counterpoise I use, and that is about a 6-foot piece of the same wire the antenna is made out of. This antenna is resonant, half wave on 20 meters, but because of the relative length, the difference in length on half wave between 30, 20, and 17 meters, this antenna works reasonably well if you have a tuner in your rig to work on 30, 20, and 17 meters. And I've used it pretty extensively on all three of those bands. But it works best. 20 seems to be the best. This is a picture of the matching network that I use. In this case, I have chosen to use an actual transformer. So this is a number 43, material 43 toroid ring. It's 2.4 inches in diameter, and it's wound with an enamel magnet wire. And this transforms that 2,500 to 3,000 ohms down to somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 ohms. Not always exactly that, but it's fairly close. I have tested this particular antenna, this particular transformer, extensively with up to 100 watts. 100 watts, this little core gets warm. So it's a transformer, so you're going to have some losses in it. So the transformer, the core gets warm. It does not get hot, but it gets, there's some losses there. If I were going to try more power, 300 or 400 watts, I'd probably add a second core, stack two cores on top of one another and do the windings that way. The measured bandwidth on this transformer is roughly 80 through 10 meters. And what I mean by that is I will take a 3,000 ohm resistor and connect it to where the antenna goes, between the antenna and ground. And I will take my VNA, my vector network analyzer, that we've talked about before, or any of the other analyzers, and I will sweep that entire frequency and check, and check and see what sort of impedance I see looking into the coaxial fitting. And it's not 50 ohms, perfectly. It's 40 to 90 ohms, and it has a little bit of capacitive reactance to it or inductive reactance to it, depending upon the frequency, but it is usable. And again, if you have a tuner in your rig, works like a champ. You can tune it right out. So that's kind of the mechanism. So I have this thing in a little box. This is a box that you can buy at Home Depot. You can see it's been through the ringer. It's got some dirt and stuff in it, so it's pretty rugged. And it's easy to build, easy to work with. Now for 6 meters, this is the Yagi that I chose. This is made by Comet. You can buy these at any of the ham radio supply places. It's a 4-element. It's lightweight. It weighs less than 5 pounds, and it is has small elements, small aluminum tubing, and the boom is relatively small, obviously, to do that. But here's the published figures on it. 6 dB over isotropic for gain and a 25 dB front to back ratio. So it's a decent little antenna. It's the only issue that I really have with this antenna is it uses very small metric screws to put it together. So you have to, so I had to buy some spares and carry them in a little bottle wherever I go. So if when I drop one of those 3 millimeter nuts, I don't have to spend a week looking for it. I can just get another one out and assemble the antenna that way. But that's just me. You may be more proficient at that, handling those sort of things than I am. For antenna supports, a tree is really a good option. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The spider pole that I mentioned before is a collapsible fiberglass mast. It's 40 feet. It's actually 10 meters, so it's right at 40 feet. I also have one of the little Roan push-up TV poles that I use with me, and there's a couple of varieties here. You can get the one that's in 10-foot sections, or they make another version that's in 8-foot sections, and I have the 8-foot sections. So it's, again, pretty light, and it's relatively easy to handle. I carry the T-pole with me much of the time. These come in various lengths up to about 8 feet, but I use a 6-foot one. And I got a little launching mechanism I'll show you for my tree supported antennas in just a minute. But all of these I can handle easily with, just myself. So here's what I use to launch it into a tree. I got a fishing weight and my little slingshot that I got from Academy. And this is 30-pound monofilament fishing line. And I can just shoot it up through the trees. The trick here is to have a sinker that is heavy enough to pull your line all the way to the ground. If you use one that's too light, you won't have enough force to drag it down so you can get to it. You have to be kind of careful with this because it is a projectile, so you have to look where you're shooting, so to speak.
Roby, I had a comment about pick something other than a pine tree.
Okay. Because
the pine bark will just grab a hold of that monofilament and it'll never come through.
Okay. It's a good idea. Here's the spider pole. The spider pole is made in Germany. And again, they're available from several, you've all heard of the spider beam probably, made by the same people. This is a very lightweight 40-foot, 10-meter pole. And there's a picture of it with a yardstick. I guess it's a little longer than a yardstick, but it gives you an idea. It's about 4 feet. It's about 4 feet long. And if you properly attach the Yagi to this fiberglass pole and protect it, it'll support that small Yagi up to about 20 feet. But this pole is collapsible, and it comes with a set of screw clamps that you put a little protective cover on, and you just pull it out and tighten the screws, and it'll stay up permanently. In fact, this is the same pole here that I use for my 160 meter receiving antenna. which is a K9AY loop. And I've got that set up, and it's a sort of a permanent installation, but same pole.
Roby, does the pole need guy wires for support?
Okay, if you're going to go much taller, if you have a beam on it and you're going to go much taller than about 20 feet, definitely. But this pole is so tough. I mean, you can use it almost like a fishing pole. So a lot of people recommend guys, but I've never used mine with guys. And it'll just, I use this pole. I don't know if you guys, I come from a power background, and we used to do hot work with what they call a hot stick. If you've ever saw them put in a fuse link in your local transformer and have this big yellow pole, this thing is very much like that. It's very tough. It does not have that tool on the end that a hot stick does, but this thing is tough. And
it's also kind of a trade-off between what size base and whether you're going to be operating in 40-mile-an-hour winds or calm, that kind of thing too.
Absolutely. So if I were going to the beach and this thing were going to stay up for a week, let's say, if I want to stay at the beach for a week and operate, I would probably consider a guy in it where I could get some pretty stiff winds. It's like Rick is saying, it's kind of a trade-off. Does that help answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And this is how I attach it to the T-pole or the T-post. You can see here I took a piece of, I believe it is 2-inch PVC pipe, and I simply split it in half. And I use that to protect the fiberglass from the bite of the stainless steel screw clamp that I use to tie it to the pole. And you can see here's one of the first joints of the pole. And this one's for a really short-term installation. A lot of times I just use tape. I pull the pole out, twist it till it has a good friction fit, put 2 or 3 wraps of 30 Scotch 33 on it, and it'll hold it for a long time. But you can kind of see how I attach it to the T-post, and I do it 2 places, at the top and at the bottom. And I didn't show the bottom one, but it's exactly the same. And a couple of comments. I've never had one of these blow over, but because it's only have a wire antenna on it. But if it did blow over, I don't think it would hurt anything. Just stick it back up. So this is not a real good picture for you to see, but here's the 6-meter Yagi install on my little steel push-up pole. It's a little easier to install the Yagi on the steel pole because it has a clamp that connects to it, and it has it's designed to kind of bite into the steel so it won't rotate. So if you're going to use this antenna with that fiberglass pole, you're going to have to put something in there to protect the pole. Otherwise, you'll cut the fiberglass. In this case, I'm using 3 sections. So that puts me at about 24 feet. In this case, this is actually tied to a fence post in the backyard. But I can also tie it to that T-post that I mentioned a few minutes ago. And I use the strong arm method for rotation. I just go out and turn it, and I tie it. A lot of times I'll just tie it with a few turns of rope, make a few coils of rope around the T-post. And that works quite well also. So any questions about supports or antennas? I mean, there's a million variations here. This is just kind of what I do. And it works pretty well.
Roby, do you have one of those pole hammer, the pipe that goes over it with the handles, that kind of stuff, or how do you hammer the T-post into the ground?
I have a 3-pound sledgehammer.
And you have a piece of wood or something to get it back out of the ground?
I just kind of rock it around like a gear shift, kind of push it to the left, push it to the right, kind of make a circle a few times and pop it right out of the ground.
So it works good for gumbo and that kind of stuff, but probably not. You got to be careful if you're doing it with sand, like at
Absolutely.
the beach or something.
Absolutely. All this is,
They make a special tool to put that in the ground and they sell it at the Home Depot.
yeah, they have those.
And they're heavy and another thing to carry.
Yeah, and I just use this, the 3-pound sledge. So, you know.
So
I
Roby,
use that
that,
at the ranch, and that hammer thing, that'll wear you out.
Yep.
Roby, your end-fed half-wave, so that's basically it's a vertical with the counterpoise sitting on the ground,
Yes. Let's
and
go back to
your network, your matching network is on the ground.
right. You can see, so here is the ground side attached to the little counterpoise, or in the case of you can use the wire that I showed earlier. And then on the other side of the transformer, the vertical connect comes out of it. I'll show you here in just a second, show you this. So here is, this picture's kind of off center, but you can see here's the SO239 mounted in the box. So the radio comes in here. Here's the center conductor. Here is the shield, the primary of the transformer goes around and goes back to the shield of the coax. This little capacitor soldered across the center conductor to the shield helps reduce some of the reactance at some of the higher frequencies.
I guess that's enameled wire because you got a bifilar winding.
It's not a bifilar winding. This is just a straight transformer winding. You can use any kind of insulation. I use this because I have it. Enamel transformer wire is not that expensive, and that's what this is. This wire is made for winding motors. And,
it's just not obvious where the two windings are.
Okay, so let's spend a little time here. Can you see my cursor?
Yes. Okay,
so you come out of the center conductor of the SO239 and you go 1, 2, 3, and you come back into the coax side. So this transformer has 3 primary terms, and they're wound on top of the secondary terms. That's why they're kind of crisscrossed, but they're just kind of wound on top of it.
Okay.
And then the secondary winding starts here and comes, this is where the ground is going to go, or the counterpoise is going to go. So the wire comes here and it comes under the toroid. It comes up and goes under, and then up and under and up and under, and it goes all the way around these turns. And this is a winding technique that is supposed to reduce capacitive reactance a little bit. I tried it, seems to be okay, but then I just changed I'm not changing the direction, but I just changed the way the wire is oriented on the core whenever I come out from under and go over and back under again. And okay. I think this is a 3 to 20 or something like that. So it's about a 7-to-1 ratio. I have to go.
What is that core again?
This is a material 43. This is an FT ferrite toroid 43-240. It's 2.4 inches in diameter, and it's material 43, and it costs about $8 or $9 a piece.
I'm a little confused about the counterpoise. I use something like this at the Texas QSO party, and instead of having a counterpoise, I just connected it to an earth ground, and that worked just fine. Do you really need a counterpoise, or can you just do an earth ground?
Well, the earth ground is the same. You just got to have somewhere for the current that goes into the antenna to come from. If you don't do anything, Mother Nature will take that current through your feed line.
Yep.
It'll be on the outside of your feed line. It's going to happen. This I've experimented with a little bit, and this seems to give me the most reliable from a point of view of matching arrangement. So I don't see a need to connect it to the ground. I think that's probably okay, but I think, and I can't, John, I don't have the data to argue which is really better.
Is
I just think you
the
can use either.
length of the counterpoise critical? In other words, if you make that counterpoise longer or shorter, do you have you ever played with that and seen what the SWR effect is?
I have played with it a lot, and it needs to be about 0.05 wavelengths or longer to do what appears to be an adequate job. If it gets to be too short, what's interesting, if you don't have a choke between this transformer and your transmission line, the transmission line also acts as a counterpoise. So sometimes you can not even have a counterpoise. In fact, if you look at the commercial versions of some of these things, they don't have them, and they just depend on the coax that's running back to your rig to be the counterpoise, to be the place where the other current comes from.
Roby, is most of your experience with relatively conductive soil as opposed to rock or limestone or granite or whatever?
Okay, so most of it is here, obviously, because, that's where I live, but I have not, in the traveling I have done in Arkansas, Eastern Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, places like that where the soil is a lot less conductive, I haven't noticed a significant difference. But again, I haven't really made a lot of measurements either. So I think it will work for you. What really makes a vertical sing is the quality of the ground around it. And I'm not talking about just immediately around it. The reason a vertical works so well around salt water is because that huge conductive plane where all the rays can get reflected off of it. That's what really makes them hum. Okay. Further questions?
Yes, you've got a 6-foot wire or so for your counterpoise. Do you use that lug, that wing nut lug, to attach to that 30-inch screen as well?
Yeah, so I guess I'm probably confused you. I don't use both. In my pictures that I had available for putting this together, sometimes I use the wire and sometimes I use the little screen. The screen I have here, and I have the the wire is what I usually take because it takes up less space, but the wire is available to use. I have several of those things in my little outbuilding, so I hope I'm answering your question. You don't need both.
Good, thank you.
Roby, you told me, I think, at one time that you have a whole presentation on the infed half wave, right?
Okay, so I have one. I am putting together one. I'm planning on one to talk about, and primarily what that one will talk about is the different matching networks, a little bit more about the pattern of the antenna, and a little bit more, and primarily about the different ways that you can match an infed half wave to get power into it.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 different ways to do that, and they all have their pluses and minuses, and they work. But just for instance, you can substitute for this transformer a tuned circuit, which works really well, but that tends to be kind of a one-band activity. Where this transformer, if I decide to go from 20 to 10 meters, I just change the rig. And because the impedance of the antenna is still going to be in the same order and the transformer ratio doesn't change, so I get about the same impedance, so I don't have to do anything but change. So it's a convenience thing. Or if I used a tuned circuit approach, I'd have to go adjust something or change a component or something to do, to get it resonant. So I could have the right step-up ratio.
Okay.
I'll be happy. I mean, that's one of the ones I'd plan to do later. Okay, where was I? Okay, I was here. Power supplies. So other important things about this approach is power supplies. Now, if you're fortunate and you got AC mains at your planned location, fantastic. Take your little switching power supply and go for it. A lot of times I take a battery, and I've done a little experimenting with this, and I've chosen the lithium iron phosphate battery chemistry because it has very high energy density. In other words, there's a lot of energy in a small package. It's relatively small and light, particularly compared to a lead acid battery. It has a very flat voltage versus capacity curve. In other words, if you measure the output voltage of the battery when it's fully charged, you'll get something like right around almost 14 volts. When the battery is 60% discharged, it'll still be up about 13.7 volts. It's still pretty high, and it doesn't really start falling off dramatically till you get down to about 60 or 40 or 30 or 40% of the battery's capacity left. Then it starts to drop off pretty precipitously there. Lead acid battery is much different than that. You lose that battery, you lose that voltage pretty fast. The little battery that I mentioned here, however how you say that, BONO BLF 1212, which is a 12-volt battery pack rated at 12 ampere hours. It'll run my KX3 for days, running about 10 watts. And I have run my K3 at about 75 watts for a number of hours and still had good voltage, and everything worked well.
What modes are you talking about?
CW and FT8 primarily.
Okay.
So here's a picture of it. This is the battery itself. This is the charger that you have to buy. It needs a special charger, but it's not very expensive. And I went to have a ruler here, but I didn't. So this battery is about, it's sitting right here. I gave you the dimensions right here. I put the dimensions right in the ruler. It's 8.5 inches long, 3.5 inches high, and about 2.25 inches wide. So it gives you an idea of roughly the size of it. It weighs just a little over 3 pounds. And these are really pretty friendly devices. I've been quite pleased so far. So I charge it and take it and use it. And I don't think with this charger that you can charge and use the battery at the same time. So because of some of the characteristics of the charger, I'm not 100% certain of that, but I don't think so. So what do I use? I have a couple pieces of equipment that I like to take. I got a KX3 and I have a K3, and I have a little Asus laptop that I use for digital mode operation or logging or anything like that, that I won't take with me. I don't always take the laptop, because a lot of times when I go, I'm going to operate just CW only. And if I do, I just have a little book that I take with me that I use for my log, and I put it in my logging software when I get back. And any kind of equipment that you're going to take out like this, I highly recommend an antenna tuner. And both my KX3 and my K3 have the internal tuners. So they, if I get in a situation where I want to operate and SWR is a little bit out of line, I just use a tuner and resolve that problem in short order. So this is the K3, which a lot of you guys are familiar with. It's 160/6. It's 100 watts, any mode you want. It's got the internal antenna tuner, and it's really got a good receiver in it. This is the K3, which is about a fourth of the size of the KX3 is about a fourth of the size of the K3. It still covers 160/6 meters. You can do more than 10 watts, but I just say 10 watts for it's kind of where I normally run it. Any modes, just like the K3, it has an internal tuner, Now, in my particular K3 has an internal set of batteries, which is a set of NiCads, I guess it is, that are nickel metal
Yeah, nickel metal
halide.
hydride. Nickel metal
Yeah,
hydride.
that are AAA cell or AA cells that are actually inside the radio. So if I want to, I can use it that way. If you use the internal batteries, about 3 watts is about what I can reliably get out of it. It runs there for a number of hours at 3 watts, but it works pretty well. So this thing is light. It's easy. You can put it in your backpack. There's a lot of things that it's just a pleasure to take with you. This little device right here is a paddle. So I don't have to take a paddle with me. This is from the QRP boys. I don't think they sell this anymore, but it's very lightweight. It's not a precision device, but it works pretty well. It's not like a Kent Brothers paddle or any of these exotic things, but you can get the CW out with it.
Hey, Roby,
Yes, sir.
I'm waiting for whoever's breathing to start snoring.
Okay, sorry.
There's somebody that's needs to mute their mic. Okay.
Okay, so this is a typical setup that I would use for operating FT8 portable like this. There's the KX3, the Asus laptop we talked about, standard old Windows 10 laptop, nothing special about it. This is a USB hub, which you can buy, anywhere. They're just a few bucks. And into that, I have a sound card, a little, let's see who made that. Little USB sound card plugged into it. And this is the USB to adapter for the KX3. So this is rig control, and this is my sound card. And the wiring goes from the USB sound card to the microphone input and to the phone out, the headphone output out of the KX3. And I do all of my push to talk changing with what's called transceiver control. I have the program send the transceiver over the rig interface a command to go from transmit to receive. So I don't have to have
uses a cat command to keep.
Yeah, cat. That's the word I was looking for. Cat command. And I can use this for FT8. I run N1MM if I'm using a logging program for both phone and CW. And I didn't show it here, but I have a Morty, which is a very tiny device like a USB wind keyer that I can use for CW. And it will plug into this. It'll plug into this little USB hub as well. So everything is, small, fairly easy to work with. Same setup works for the K3, works fine.
Question.
Okay.
When you go to voice mode sideband, do you have a mic plugged in here to the radio, or do you?
So what I do is I will
do the switch.
If I will unplug the sound card, and I will plug in I use the Yamaha headset, the electric mic and the headphones, kind of like what you're wearing. And mine has the small 3.5 millimeter plugs on it, and I just plug it right in there. And that's what I do. So this you guys know about. This page was mostly meant for the other group I talked to. A lot of newbies in there. A lot of people didn't know too much about the different modes and how things work. So I spent a little time with them. So here's a couple of experiences. This was done in July, and I worked some of you guys from this. Oliver, Orville and I went to grid EL39 to activate that grid with the hopes of giving Sid K5XI the grid, which is one of the few ones that he needs for the Fred Fox Memorial Award. So we were there in one day in July. We stayed one day. We were providing contacts and confirmations for the, says rear, but it's supposed to be rare or fairly rare grid square on 6 meters, EL39, for people that were looking for the VUCC and the Fred Fox Award. We used that 4-element Yagi that I showed you on that steel mast that I showed you with a T-pole that I showed. That's how we put all that thing together. We used the Elecraft K3 for both WSJTX with WSJTX and FT8 in MSK 144. This is 6 meters only, so those are the modes we were using. We ran the K3 at 100 watts, and we had AC power available. Orville talked one of the city councilmen of Groves, Texas, into coming out and turning on the power for us. So we had all the power we needed. So we had a great time. So I'll show you, let's see. And this gives you an idea of some of the places we were working from Groves. You can see down here where you get a rough idea of where we were. Over here is Houston, and over here is Beaumont, Port Arthur area. And these were some of the signals that we had received from
Are those the people that heard you?
Yes.
Okay, so those are the stations that spotted your signal.
That's right. And this is PSK Reporter.
Did you work SID?
No. We tried, but we did not. But we did work Rick, and we worked
Peter Rabbit,
Chuck, and who else we worked? We worked TUF, Glenn, and I don't know, we had about, what was Orville, about 50 QSOs that day?
pretty close.
I think that's what it was. And we did work some stations up in the Midwest and over into Florida. Hey, it's summer, it's 6 meter E season. That's what we were working. We didn't have the best day for propagation. We had a decent day, so it was pretty good. And now I have used this same setup, exactly the same setup that we're talking about, except that there's an additional length of coax in it, the same K3, the same power supply, the same computer, everything. And on 10-1, just a few days ago, I worked KH6 from EL29 with that antenna pointed to the west. So, if you work 6 meters, it's possible, right? So it's a pretty neat little setup. Same setup. I also worked down into South America here the other day. Since I put this presentation together, added this presentation to it, I worked HC Ecuador.
What mode?
FT8 on 6.
Okay.
Okay. So I like to operate, like I said, when I travel. And in November, I went to Flippin, Arkansas to fish the White River. And so when I wasn't fishing in the day, I had the radio to fiddle with at night. So I took the K3, the KX3, the end-fed half wave, and I slung it up into a tree. I used the battery that I showed you and 10 watts, only CW, and I worked 20 and 30 meters. And just fiddling around, I worked 35 stations and 12 different countries, with that setup. So it's reasonably effective. Now I have used this, a very similar setup at home in my backyard during last year's DX contest in February. I guess it is the CW DX contest. And I worked a number of Caribbean stations. Again, with the end-fed half wave, 10 watts, the KX3. So this, I guess I'm trying.
So, Robbie, do you usually call CQ when you're doing CW, or do you?
I swap back and forth. I call CQ, yes, I do, and I do look for stations as well.
Do you do CQ, QRP, or anything like that, or you just?
Usually not.
Yeah.
Just CQ in my call.
And I don't want to interrupt here. If you got more, keep going. I had a couple of other questions not specific to this. So
I got one more page here. So I think this approach is what I'm planning on doing for some of the local guys down here. Unfortunately, the young guys or the newer guys, they're not CW savvy. So I'm probably going to use FT8 with them. So it'll probably be the HF version of my 6 meter setup that I will use with them, which I have used quite often. I don't know if some of you guys remember, you guys that were on DX Opportunity will remember. Last summer, I talked about my front porch DXpeditions. My front porch of my house is on the north side of the house, so I'd go out there when there was shaded and set up this little setup and operate FT8 on 20 meters. And I work quite a few stations like that. So I figure I'll be able to do the same thing with these guys, and hopefully I'll try to get them hooked. All right, so it's time for your questions.
Roby, the question that I had was about logging and logbook of the world and location and grid and county and multiple locations in logbook of the world and all that. What do you do as far as multiple locations?
All right, so I keep a record of, so first of all, I don't do any automatic logging or anything like that into LOTW when I'm out away from the house. I collect my log somewhere else. Now, and in the logging software that I use, DX Labs has a place for what's called MyQTH. And everywhere that I operate portable, I have generated a MyQTH location, which is grid square, CQ zone, ITU zone, state, county, country, the standard stuff that you normally put in your log. And I replicate that with a location in LOTW. Then whenever I load all my logs into DX Labs and I tell DX Labs which location I'm using, it transfers that information to LOTW. And whenever I upload it, it will transmit the right information. So if you worked us, so that was K5DX that we used in EL39. But if you had worked me when I was in Arkansas and you look in your log, you look in your LOTW log, you would see that I was in Arkansas, that it's the same CQ zone as we're in here, same ITU zone. I would have had the county in Arkansas, which I think is Marion, but I don't remember exactly. Would have the state would be Arkansas. I keep all that straight. And if you ask me, you might take me a few minutes and say, okay, how many countries have you worked from one of the locations in Tennessee that I operate from time to time? Well, it takes me a little bit of doing, but I can tell you that. And if you had worked me from there and you went into LOTW and saw the confirmation, you would see that I gave you a confirmation for the state of Tennessee, not the state of Texas, whatever county that is. I keep all that stuff straight, and that's how I do it. I use my logging software. When I have my little paper notebook that I use, if I'm not taking the computer with me, I simply record at the top of each page or at the top of the page where I'm going to start the log, what county I'm in, what zone I'm in, what state I'm in, that sort of stuff. And then whenever I get back home and get ready to put it in the software, I have all the information for you that I need to make those locations. And that's how I do it.
Okay. Well, I have another. Do you ever use portable or any kind of extensions on your call when you're like in W4
Okay, I
Or
do not.
If you're,
I do not. And the reason I
Okay.
do not is because that requires I get a different certificate from for LOTW. And as long as I'm
right,
in
and
the,
there's no,
that's
I was
right.
going to say there's no requirement that the FCC doesn't have the requirement to do it. You know, there's only some of the contests that require you to do it.
Right. So I choose not to just because I don't want to get another certificate. I could, and it's easy to get those certificates. Once you have your main certificate, it's really just a administrative move, but that's another call that's entered into my logs. You know, it adds a little complexity. So my rule is I'm not going to do it unless I have to do it. But if I have to do it,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
no problem. I can do it.
And I'll make one other comment and then move along because it's a different subject. Is Logbook of the World has made some changes recently to where you don't have to create, you can create generic location records and pass the county and the grid from your logger into that generic location instead of having to have a whole bunch of locations in
Yeah.
TQSL.
That's true.
But like
I
I said,
haven't,
different.
So I'm aware of that. I haven't gone there yet, and I'm, not afraid of it. Just
Orville and I had lots of fun with that when we were doing the K5DX stuff.
So that's my
Okay, thank
story,
you.
guys.
Yeah. Roby, I've got a couple of comments for portable operation.
Go ahead.
Okay, back in the early days before I had towers and stuff up at the farm, I was fortunate to have about, I don't know, 7 or 8 miles of barbed wire fence with T-poles every 10 feet. And I found that a pair of vice grip pliers, a connector that will take you SO239 to 3/8 female, 3/8 24 female for the ham stick. You clamp that to a T-post and you put your coax where it belongs and your antenna where it belongs. And it was absolutely amazing how far I could get from 4 feet off the ground in a ham stick. So that would be another alternative. Ham sticks are relatively inexpensive. You can cover 10 to 40 meters pretty easily for under $50 or maybe under $60. and your vice grips and the connector won't cost you a whole bunch. And like I say, that would be a good operation for something temporary if you've got a fence post or at least one T-post that you can clamp onto. I found that it worked extremely well.
Sure, I'm glad. I'm pretty sure it would. And that's what I was saying by this in this early part of this discussion. I'm just telling you what I know. There's tons of opportunities here. Tons of opportunities for people to try and do different things, and that will work. I'm glad to hear of another one that works.
Robbie, K0YY, Roger with a comment.
Yes, sir.
A good evening from Lufkin, Roger K0YY. If you're interested in portable operations, you might want to take a look at the Parks on the Air, which is a really great program that's taking off. A lot of people are very, very active in it. The website is parksontheair.com, and it's a great website with lots of information about it. As a matter of fact, there's probably 25 or so folks going out in Texas this coming weekend as a part of the local DTARC event up here, Frozen Parks on the Air, Texas Lone Star Frozen Parks on the Air. I'm going to San Augustine Mission Dolores, putting the State Historic Site on the air, and I've been doing this for a while. So
cool.
A lot of information, a lot of fun. Check out Parks on the Air if you're interested in this kind of thing. There's probably several hundred parks, wildlife management areas, state historic sites, national forests, state forests in Texas that you can put on the air. They all have a number, and they all participate in this program. So it's just a lot of fun. That's it from Lufkin. Over.
I have
Yeah, I
another
have seen.
comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in that connection, I signed up for this first annual Frozen Texas Parks on the Air event a couple of weeks ago. Decided to go to Lake Whitney, and I noticed there were 4 different operations there, so I didn't want to compete with them. So I changed to Fairfield Lake State Park near Corsicana, and then I realized it was going to be raining all weekend long, and there's nothing worse than portable operation in the rain. So to get away from the rain, I finally decided to go to Fort Lancaster State Historic Site, which is way out in West Texas. It's like a 7-hour drive. But I wanted to give my own operation a plug here because this park has never been activated in Parks on the Air. So I'm expecting, since I'm driving 7 hours, I'm expecting to have a lot of TDXS guys call me up and just say Texas DX Society, and you're right on the top of the pileup.
Well, put something out on your reflector if you would.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. One other thing that relevant comment, I did my first POTA activation last weekend at Smith Point, and it was miserable. I bought the Step IR Crank IR, which is a pretty simple thing. It's like a cross, and it's got 2 spools on it, and one releases wire and the other one takes wire down, so it varies the length of the antenna. But basically what you've got is a vertical antenna. And what happened was it got, it's like all fishing line. It just got hopelessly tangled up because the spools are not large enough to really contain the wire. And if it gets really full, then it falls over the back, and then you're cutting it, and so I was out on the beach there. I went to Smith Point, which is the Abshire Wildlife Management Area, and it's kind of a beautiful and secluded place. Some lady came out and she said, "What are you doing there? I've seen ham radio operators here before. What are you doing?" And she said, the last guy that came out here, he ran his battery down and he couldn't get out. So I was afraid to tell her, "Hey, look, we're the guys that are going to provide the emergency communications. You guys live down here by the water, so you could have a flood and everything." But I was too embarrassed because I was spending hours kind of untangling this damn $1,000 Crank IR antenna. So maybe the homebrew things are good, but and I was so disgusted with it that I was going to give it away. I was going to come to this meeting and say, anybody wants Crank IR for free, you can have it. But I think I'm going to give it another chance. I'm going to give it another whirl at the Fort Lancaster State Historic Site. I bought some fishing line. I'm going to rig it up and see if I can't do it without screwing it up this time. But anyway. That's going to be Saturday, and of course the winter field day thing is actually the following weekend.
That's correct.
It's not 2 weeks. It's 1 week from now. So I'm going to be doing both of those things. The winter field day thing I'm going to do at Goliad State Park near San Antonio.
Wow.
Hey, Roby?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, although it costs a little bit of money, I would highly recommend the buddy pole dipoles. That's what I take down to Belize, and their regular size buddy pole will fit into a regular suitcase, weighs a few pounds, and it's really deadly simple to use.
Yeah, and they can also be a vertical, and that is very effective too. I'm going to
That's
take
true.
that with me. If my
true.
$800 Crank IR gets all screwed up again, I can at least use the buddy pole.
Yeah.
I might
Dr.
add that there is a Facebook page for POTA as well, facebook.com/groups/Parks on the Air. More information if you're interested in Parks on the Air. And I do use what they call a Wolf River coil, 80/10, and it's a vertical. And I use it on the trailer hitch extension on my car with some radios laid on the ground. And that works quite well.
N5LZ has a comment.
Go ahead.
Hey, first of all, it's nice to see all you guys. I see a few old friendly faces from years ago when I lived down there. Anyway, I live up here in Utah. I've had a crank IR for, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years now. I got one when they first came out, and I've had pretty good luck with it. Even though I can understand where you're coming from, John. But I've got a video online that I've had just for setting the thing up, and a couple things I've found with it. If you've got if you take an antenna analyzer along with you, you can tweak that thing real quickly and change bands. And that's one of the advantages that I believe it has over the buddy pole. I think the buddy pole, you kind of have to rebuild your antenna every time you change bands, whereas this
Correct.
crank IR, you can change it in just a minute. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that, and I'll post a link to a video that I've got on that thing on the reflector.
Yeah, one
Anyways,
thing I will say, Don, is that once I untangled all the wire, it worked great. I got on 20 meters and I was like 5.9 everywhere. So,
well, yeah, you don't need a support. That's another advantage. You don't need a support, and it's easy to change bands.
So Smith Point would be a great place for 160 meters. Man, with all the water on just about on all sides, and that would be fantastic.
Roby, don't forget also U.S. islands on the air. That's ideal for portable operations, and a lot of guys hunt those islands. You can go to their website and look up the islands that have been activated by state, and if you want to activate an island not on their list, you let them know where you're going and the latitude, longitude, and name of the island. And all you have to make is about 25 contacts plus 2DX, and you'll get an island designation number straight from the guy who runs the registrations. I did Pine Island out in Lake Livingston. I took the boat out there and took a multi-band Hustler vertical and pounded a galvanized plumbing pipe into the sand out there and clamped the Hustler to it, and took a ICOM 706 and a car battery and worked out there for a couple of hours before a tropical storm was moving in, and made a lot of guys happy.
Wow. Yeah, lots of ways to do this. And from the antenna point of view, there's a million things you can do. You just have to, pick something and kind of work it out, and you can make some cues with them.
And I would again say, the practice your CW. That's where you're going to have be most effective.
There's an island that's right off Bay Cliff. I think it's called Atkinson Island. It used to be a Chevron ownership. Now it's a wildlife management area, and it's on Parks on the Air. Nobody's ever been there. You can't get there except by boat, but that would be a great one to do. If somebody's interested in doing it and they have a boat and they don't mind mosquitoes and alligators, because that's all that lives out there. But if you're kind of a brave soul and you want to do something a little crazy and put an island on the air, I'm game.
Yeah, that one's, you go to Morgan's Point and go a little bit too far, and that's where you are.
Yeah, that's it. Morgan's Point. Yeah.
What about North and South Bird Islands between Galveston and the mainland? Are they accessible? I mean, I fished around them, but I've never actually been on them. And at one time there was some kind of restriction there because of the bird habitat, but if I remember correctly. Okay, any more questions, comments?
Roby, on your 6-meter antenna, everything is Armstrong for you?
Yeah.
So all of your FT8 contacts that you've made on 6 has been that way?
Yep.
Okay.
At least in recent years, in the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Your portable operations is what you're asking about, Mike, right?
No, his house.
No.
No, I don't have. I have rotors, but I don't have one on the 6-meter antenna. I just walk out and turn it by hand. It's easy.
No wonder you're pointed the wrong way most of the time.
That's right.
What kind of account do you have country-wise on 6?
On 6 meters, more than 50. I probably not 60. I'd have to go dig it up, but I was probably 50 or 51, something like that.
Yeah, one of my to-dos is to increase my 6-meter count on my vertical here. I've only got 7 right now.
Yeah, 50 or 60 is pretty easy to do from this part of the country on 6 because of all of the islands in the Caribbean and South America is pretty easy to get all those countries.
Yeah.
So Europe, not as much.
Yep.
Move up here to Utah if you want a challenge on 6-meter DXing.
Yep, I bet so. So K5AX was in, the guy we were trying to give the EL39 to was in Nevada. So again, same sort of thing, right? A real hard spot.
Yeah, you just didn't have any propagation out that way, so.
Yeah.
The problem there is that it's beyond meteor scatter and all of that, so you got to have some sporadic to get out there.
Yeah.
I just need one more hop than you guys do for a lot of those.
Right.
A lot of those countries.
Well, Mike, I will tell this story because it just happened today, but we went to activate EL39 and had a good time doing it. That was the most important thing, Orville and I. And I had worked EL39 a number of times, but I had never gotten it confirmed either by a card or in LOTW. And today, I got a card in the mail from a guy in EL39 to confirm that grid. And I made the contact 21 years ago. So that was how long it took to get the card from EL39.
Yeah, who was it, Roby?
Hang on a minute.
Remember the call?
I think I got a stack of cards here I hadn't filed yet. I think I can pull it out. Give me just a second.
John, I moved to Baton Rouge area of Louisiana about 2.5 years ago.
KC50AO, Jim Choate in Abbeville, Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
He goes by James, not Jim. Okay, that's my story, guys. I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, well, any other business anybody have? Not hearing anything? Well, I guess we'll call the quits here. Thanks for attending. It's some great conversation, some really good programs presented, and we'll see what we can scrape up for next week, or next month, I should say.
So just a comment about programs. So I had committed to do several this year. I'm going to, I don't know exactly when I'll be ready with these, but I am going to do the one on the in-fed half wave, just the different ways to do it, as I mentioned. I'm also going to do one on the Smith chart.
All right, good.
And that will be coming up. I'm a little bit later too. I don't know exactly when, but I think those will be good topics.
Roby, do you have a VNA?
Yes, I have.
Okay. I haven't got one of those tools yet.
Yeah, let's see. The short version of the Smith chart is 15 minutes. The long version is 15 days.
Doug, I wanted to mention that as some of you guys know, Jeff Hoke at Centerpoint Energy is retiring soon. He may already be retired
next month.
Well, I heard I mean, we discussed today that he may be taking his vacation time, so he may be gone, but I don't know. I haven't called him. But there's a new guy. He's training. His name is Greg Young. And I have his contact information. So maybe I'll post that on the reflector. But the new guy is hopefully he'll be half as good as Jeff. So we'll see.
Yep.
Is he
He's bigger than
licensed?
Jeff.
He's not as tall as Jeff, but he's still pretty big.
No, he's not licensed.
No, neither one of them have a license.
Yeah, they work on FM commercial radios too much, so they don't. You know, I do that stuff at work all the time. I don't do it at home syndrome.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, if anybody has any suggestions for what good topics we could try to scare up a presenter for, that'd be great to send them to me. Or if you want to present something yourself.
And think about officers.
Yeah.
We need them.
We
Somebody
need
needs to do it.
Someone step up, please, please. Okay.
Hey, Bill, that better not be a bowl of Bluebell ice cream you're holding there.
Why not?
Was that going to W5SG, Bill?
Yeah.
Bill, is that a real picture behind you, or is that a real lathe behind you?
Yeah, he came in with a bowl in his hand, and I thought that was Bluebell ice cream. We can't get that up here.
Oh, gee. What a wasteland.
I'll send you some UPS.
No,
He unmuted. Go ahead and talk, Bill.
a bowl of grapes.
Grapes, okay.
Bill, are you in a workshop, or is that just a picture behind you?
It's a picture now, but that's the shop.
Can you operate all of that lathe behind you?
Oh, a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, well, good evening, gentlemen. It's been fun. We'll see you next month.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
See you later.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Scott, stick around for a second if you would.
Sure.
See y'all later. See you in the contest. See you in the contest.